Here, let me grab a copy here. This is something I put in the book on the inside back cover in orange, is a facsimile of the actual facts that Randy Glass was trying to fax at that time. And it's a pretty amazing document. You know, he said something like, I know I'm way in over my head here, but this thread that I know about, the thing that the State Department said about planes being used, you know, even the agents I'm working with are really concerned, and please have somebody call me.
On file and dated July 16, 2001, 2 months before 9/11, Glass writes to Graham, "Please tell me what is going on. I've told you repeatedly about my terrorist case, the sophisticated weapon system, nuclear components, the targets of blowing up the World Trade Center, and who knows what else. These people hate Americans. This information I've gotten from the State Department about the airplanes being used."
I had been threatened by FBI agent Steve Brodowski that if I mentioned any of that, I would be charged with obstruction of justice.
Abbas turned out to be a Pakistani ISI agent. Yet again, another intelligence asset connected to Al-Qaeda. Senator Bob Graham stated he was surprised to see foreign governments involved in the attacks.
But also I was surprised at the evidence that there were foreign governments involved in facilitating the activities of at least some of the terrorists in the United States. I am stunned that we have not done a better job of pursuing that to determine if other terrorists received similar support, and even more important, if the infrastructure of a foreign government assisting terrorists still exists for the current generation of terrorists who are here planning the next plots. To me, that is an extremely significant issue, and most of that information is classified, I think overly classified. I believe the American people should know the extent of the challenge that we face in terms of foreign government involvement, and that would motivate the government to take action.
Are you suggesting that you are convinced that there was a state sponsor behind 9/11?
I think there is very compelling evidence that at least some of the terrorists were assisted, not just in financing, although that was part of it, by a sovereign foreign government, and that we have been derelict in our duty to track that down, make the further case, or find evidence that would indicate that that is not true, and we can look for other reasons why the terrorists were able to function so effectively in the United States.
And do you think that will ever become public? Which countries are talking about?
It'll become public at some point when it's turned over to the archives, but that's 20 or 30 years from now. We need to have this information now because it's relevant to the threat that the people of the United States are facing today.
But the 9/11 Commission maintained that no foreign governments were involved in the attacks. What is the Pakistani connection, and why doesn't the public know more about it? Why does Bob Graham act so surprised when he was warned by both Dr. David Graham and Randy Glass about Pakistan's operational involvement in 9/11? Now remember, Porter Goss was also warned by Dr. David Graham. Is it just a coincidence that these were the only two men that were warned and also happened to be conveniently sitting aboard the congressional inquiry that investigated 9/11 that gave the public the official story? They sat in command of the congressional inquiry with Nancy Pelosi.
It took us 9 months to do all of our work, have our hearings, interview our witnesses, write the report, and it took 6 months for the administration to agree to some level of declassification. The report is overclassified. That is a disservice to the American people.
There are just pages of blank here that the committee's left out.
A number of September 11th families are angry at the U.S. government, and information withheld from the report on Congress's investigation of the attacks is just the starting point.
The cover-up.
William Doyle lost his oldest son, 25-year-old Joseph, a trader for Cantor Fitzgerald.
Nothing.
Doyle says all these empty pages are about the role of Saudi Arabia. The White House, which took 7 months to screen the document for sensitive material, deleted the information, he says, because the government wants to keep Saudi Arabia's support for the terrorists secret.
There's so many oil dealings and what have you, and I honestly believe that they do not want that to come out in the wash.
After reading the report, Doyle says that the INS is to blame too. that the hijackers never should have been allowed to stay in the country. He tempers his anger, reflecting by a shrine for his son. 2 years after the fact, the report doesn't seem to offer closure. Instead, a new opening and a very raw wound.
The much-anticipated report was more than 800 pages long. But since it was released this past summer, most of the attention has focused on 28 of those pages. One chapter that is almost completely redacted, ordered classified by the White House, and blacked out to the public.
And because they're classified, I can't tell you what's in those pages. I can tell you that the chapter deals with information that our committees found in FBI and CIA files that was very disturbing. It had to do with sources of foreign support for the hijackers, or alleged sources of foreign support for the hijackers.
Now, I know it is believed and has been reported that many of those 27 or 28 redacted pages deal with the Saudi relationship to the hijackers, but...
That's what the press has said. I haven't said that.
Every nation in every region now has a decision to make. Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists.
By then, the Bush administration knew that despite years of Saudi reassurance, 15 of the 19 hijackers had been Saudi nationals. So in the terrible aftermath of September 11th, surely it was now time to track down those who provided money and support for 9/11 wherever they might be. Right? Wrong again, according to former CIA insider Robert Baer.
When George W. Bush says, terrorists, those who harbor them, those who give support to them, are our enemies. That's obviously not true, because everybody that financed September 11th is currently in Saudi Arabia and free. I mean, it would sort of like if bin Laden had said, well, you know, it's just a coincidence my guys happened to run into your towers. Are we just going to leave him alone?
Not all the money that financed the attacks came from Saudi Arabia, although the majority of it did. Not surprisingly, another source of the funding came from Pakistan. It was reported in the Times of India that a $100,000 wire transfer took place between Omar Sheikh, an ISI agent, and Muhammad Atta, ringleader of the 9/11 attacks. Omar Sheikh was ordered through the ISI to transfer the funds by the ISI chief, General Mahmoud Ahmed. Was this detected by the United States? Well, Senior Vice President of Anti-Money Laundering at Corporate Risk International, Dennis Bormel, was responsible for anti-money laundering and terrorist financing services. Dennis retired from the FBI following 28 years of service as a special agent. Yes, right out on the front end, they wired over $100,000 in to Mr. Atta a year ago, and we are aware of that. And we tracked that back to accounts in the United Arab Emirates. Deputy Director of the FBI, John Pistole, stated that the FBI conducted a detailed financial investigation analysis of the 19 hijackers and their support network following the September 11th attacks. A continuing investigation, in coordination with the Pent Bomb team, has traced the origin of the funding of 9/11 back to the financial accounts in Pakistan.
Suspected hijacker Mohammed Atta received wire transfers via Pakistan and then distributed the cash via money orders bought here in Florida. A senior law enforcement source tells CNN the man sending the money to Atta is believed to be